Hello and welcome to the Grange's e-safety presentation. We've decided to put this together not only because it's e-safety week this week in school, but also because with the pandemic going on and lockdown being in place at the moment, we know that it's more important now more than ever that we know how to keep our children safe online, that we understand the risks and what we can put in place to support that. I am aware that the internet is an amazing thing and is so beneficial to our children in so many different ways. I could go on and talk about that for a really long time, but I think the importance of today is that we do focus on the safety aspect around it, the risks that could be posed by our children playing online, and the things that you can do to support them to know how to keep themselves safe, and that so you as parents and carers feel skilled and able to do the same. In order to keep our children safe online effectively, it's important that we first look at and understand the different types of risks. I've listed on this slide the different types of risks our children can face when being on the internet. As you can see, the list is quite broad, and we're not going to have time today to go into each point individually. However, if you would like further information on any of these points, I will be signposting you and sharing links with you throughout this presentation that will lead you to further information on each point. Today, we will be focusing predominantly on grooming and online abuse, as we feel this is most relevant to us, our school and our community at the moment. So what is online grooming? Anyone can groom another person. A groomer is someone who makes an emotional connection with someone to try and make them do things like have sexual conversations online or by text message, send naked images of themselves, which is something called sexting, send sexual videos of themselves, do something sexual live on a webcam, or to try and meet up with that person face to face. I think it's really important to recognise that a groomer can be anyone, and although sometimes there are sort of stereotypes around who that type of person might be, that person can be young, old, and definitely can be male or female. The link that you can see on this slide at the bottom will take you to the Think You Know website, which has lots of great information about e-safety, but this video in particular talks about online grooming and what it is in even more detail. On this slide, you will see a report based on the survey of 2,167 UK 5 to 16-year-olds based on their mobile phone usage. I think it's really crucial that we understand how many of our children have access to a mobile phone. Lots of other devices in the house, such as laptops or PCs, iPads, they may be very monitored by parents and carers and have the filters, whereas as soon as our children have a mobile phone, that is their independent access to the internet and when their vulnerability can increase. Here you will find further findings from the same piece of research, but these 2 points are around the apps that our children are using and the favourites. So YouTube remains the firm favourite, with children between the ages of 5 and 15. And to no surprise, other platforms such as TikTok are rising in popularity every year. TikTok is actually one of the apps that has been responsible for children being exposed to inappropriate content and videos. At the bottom you can see a quote by Simon Leggett, a research director at Childwise, which says, "The moment a child owns a mobile phone, it can be a challenge to monitor what your child is accessing online because it's such a private technology that most keep literally close to their chest." This piece of research looked at specifically the increase in device usage and what devices our children are using to access the internet. As you can see, mobile phones, game consoles and smart TVs are on the rise, which is, as I said in my previous slide, is why although we may have these restrictions and parental controls on our desktops and on our laptops, they aren't necessarily what our children are using to access the internet. And I think we need to be aware of how big a part game consoles now are playing in that, as children can access YouTube, messengers, live chat, video chat, all with different people, not just their friends, but anyone that's using that game console. So they have also been involved in a lot of grooming cases over the last 2 years. Over the next 2 slides, you will see a list of social media, network and gaming apps that are rising in popularity with our children. Whilst researching these, I also came across several that I hadn't heard of and needed to look at what the intention was of the app and also what our children could access while on it. I know a lot of our parents report feeling very overwhelmed when trying to keep up to date with everything that all these new apps do. And I think that's where the importance of communicating with our children, having open conversations about their internet use and what they're accessing. So rather than trying to understand each and every app that is released, you can just understand and research the specific apps that your child has. For example, throughout the list you will see some of the common ones such as Facebook, Instagram and Snapchat. However, if your child just has those three, you can take the time to research those. You may know them quite generally, but then you may find other things such as Snapchat has a location device on it, so you can actually see where the children are when they're using the app. For example, I was unaware of Tango, which is a free international communication service. That was something that I wasn't aware was out there and that our young people were using. So if there are any that you are not sure on and you know that your child uses, it's definitely worth researching them further. Here are more social media, network and gaming apps. Some of them you may be more familiar with, such as Twitter, WhatsApp, PlayStation and Xbox. The reason I've included PlayStation and Xbox on this list, despite them not being an app, is because they have apps within them and devices within them that allow children to message, voice call and video call friends and members of the public. As I said earlier, TikTok is a video sharing app, which there have been several incidents reported of children coming across inappropriate videos and content, and that's not from them specifically searching for inappropriate content, but for it coming up on their feed. Over the next couple of slides, we're going to be looking at signs to look out for with online grooming. So sort of things that you could potentially pick up for in the conversations that you're having with your child or children about the sort of their time on the internet or new friendships they might have made while gaming. So the first thing is that groomers will naturally try and build a very quick friendship with their victim, and the friendship will almost seem perfect. You know, they will like exactly the same things. Does that child have the same hobbies? Enjoy all the same TV programs, which isn't necessarily realistic in a real friendship. If we think about our children's relationships now, they won't always necessarily like exactly the same thing as their friends. So if your child is talking about a new friend that they've made online who, likes everything they do and is into all the same things, and that friendship becomes quite close quite quickly, and that might want to sort of raise an alarm bell for us to sort of maybe ask further questions about that. Parents of children who have been groomed often report that the relationship between their child and the perpetrator became very intense very quickly. So also abusers will often talk and try and sort of encourage talk around sex, and sometimes that can present itself quite quickly sort of in their relationship. Perpetrators will feel that children may be more inclined to talk about that sort of thing, on the computer or online rather than face to face. So it's just important that children always know that if anything inappropriate is asked or makes them feel slightly uncomfortable or question that, then they need to come and speak to an adult that they trust. Often groomers will use quite public platforms like Facebook and Instagram and online games to initially meet their victim. Because they are very public, they won't want that relationship or conversation to remain on that platform for very long, because they know that other people will have access to seeing what they're talking about, and it will be monitored. So they will quite often and very quickly ask that child or invite that child to speak or communicate with them on a one-to-one basis using a different and maybe more private and secure platform. And I think it's just a really good rule to have with our children when we're talking about their lives online, that when they are communicating and talking with people, that is in a group, and that conversation remains in the group. And should anyone that they don't know or unfamiliar with from day-to-day life ask them to move out of the group for a more private conversation, that they alert that to sort of a trusted adult. I think as well another good rule is to have one person in that group that you do know from your day-to-day life that you can 100% verify is that person. Abusers will often not want anyone else to know about the conversation they're having with their victim. So they'll use a few different sort of tactics to try and ask that child to keep it quiet. So they may take the approach of being really good friends with them and it being a secret between friends, and being sort of a positive thing and a fun thing that the child will sort of adhere to. Also, they may take it in a more aggressive way and sort of put a bit of fear into that child and say that if they did disclose about the conversation, that for some reason that they would be in trouble. So I think that's why it's so important that we talk to our children about safe and unsafe secrets and what they look like, and that there is a difference between safe and unsafe. And if they are ever confused or worried about a secret that somebody is asking them to keep, that again they go and speak to somebody about that, so, an adult that they trust around them. So the last couple of points that we're going to look at for sort of signs to look out for are mood swings. So perpetrator may try and control their victim by switching between emotions and being quite nasty and then very kind and nasty again, very quickly. So one minute they may be sort of that perfect friend that we spoke about, where they're into the same things, they like the same things, and everything's sort of perfect there, and then become very angry or annoyed at the child and say hurtful things. This will cause the child perhaps to feel upset or guilty and worried that friendship's been jeopardized, and perhaps they did something to cause that, and then perhaps they would be more inclined to do behaviours or risky behaviours that is asked of them, perhaps they wouldn't do normally, in order to repair that friendship. And the last one that we're going to look at is, so when the abuser is pretending to be a different gender or a different age than what they're claiming to be, they naturally won't want to be seen by the victim. Nowadays, in most devices there is a camera, even in sort of iPads, phones, laptops, even smart TVs. So nowadays the ability to be able to put a camera on is relatively easy. So if that friend or that person they've met online is very reluctant to ever be seen on camera, again that needs to be sort of raising the red flag for us and sort of making us question that and being a bit more curious about who that person might be. And the last point I just put at the bottom, because I think it's so important, to remember that we can tell our children as much as we want that if anything is said inappropriate online, if anything said that makes them feel uncomfortable or is sexualized, our children are very switched on, and we really push it at school about safety and reporting things that are worrying them. But it's remembering that perpetrators won't always use behaviour that is concerning to a child. They won't necessarily always talk about sex straight away or threaten or intimidate. They will pretend to be a person of their age. They'll build friendship, that trust, and the perfect friendship model that we spoke about. So that child won't necessarily raise a concern, because from their point of view, there's nothing to raise. So that's why, again, it's about having those conversations so that if they do meet a new friend online, they feel comfortable to tell you about that, so you can monitor that relationship through your conversations with your child. So throughout the presentation so far, we've looked at the risks that our children may face when being online, the apps that they may be using, and the apps that are rising in popularity according to the survey. We honed in on grooming, and what that is, and we looked at the signs that we need to be watching out for that may indicate that our child is becoming a victim of or vulnerable to online grooming. So now we're going to move on to more about what you can do to understand your child's life online. And as I said before, it is really about those conversations, those regular conversations with your child about what they're doing online, what apps they're interested in, what games they're playing, how they're communicating with friends on there. Because by having those conversations, it's going to help you to feel not so overwhelmed and not to feel like you have to know about every new app that's coming out and what every new app can do, because you will feel secure by your regular conversations with your child, what apps they're using, so you know that you'll only need to research what those apps can do and understand those, that set of apps rather than all of the apps. I know parents say that sometimes starting those conversations about their child's life online can be difficult and may sometimes feel like they're intruding on their privacy. And I think, again, that emphasises the importance of it being almost a daily conversation with your child, like you would when you pick them up from school. You would ask, how their day's been, what they've been up to, what they've learnt, what friends they've played with, and who they may have spoken to. And it needs to be as sort of fluid and as light-hearted as that, so that you don't feel like there's too much pressure on that conversation, because it's something that you discuss, regularly. So when you're talking with your child about their life online, you can tell them that you're genuinely interested in what they're doing, and that that they would be using the internet for lots of different things. So that might be research for homework, especially at the moment, but also talking with friends and gaming, and saying that you're not trying to prevent that at all or stop that. It's just ensuring that they're doing that safely. You can ask your child to show you what apps they enjoy, and what apps they have downloaded, and so you can say that that's so you can understand them, and again to keep them safe while using them. And then if you do have a concern or a worry about an app that they might be using, it's about, although you need to address that, trying to keep that quite conversation, by saying things like, I really like this site, but perhaps I'm a little bit worried about something I've seen here. So again, they don't feel attacked and they don't feel a need to hide that at all, because it's just a conversation. And then finally, again, it's about telling them that if there is anything that they're worried about, if there's anything that's said in their conversations online that may be inappropriate or makes them feel uncomfortable, or any friendships that are maybe becoming quite intense, or things like that they can come to you, and that you are there to listen, and help them with their life online, and you want to be there to keep them safe. So when you're talking to your child about their life online, it's important not only to ask them about the apps, the games, and things that they're playing on, but also the friendships that they have online, whether they're friends from school or from clubs that they attend, or whether they're new friends that they have met online somehow. And by keeping those conversations open, you will then be able to monitor those friendships. So if there are any of the red flags that we spoke about earlier, the relationship's becoming very intense quickly, almost like the perfect friendship that seems a bit too good to be true, you'll be able to monitor that through the conversations. And then the last 2 points sort of tie into each other really, and it's about allowing to have those conversations about what apps are appropriate, and which ones aren't. So rather than shutting down a conversation, and asking that child just to delete the app without talking about why, if your child wants an app and you don't feel it's appropriate, sit down and engage in a conversation about that. Explain to them why you don't feel it's appropriate, and perhaps a point where it may become appropriate for them, if when they become a certain age, and then listen to the child's reason as to why they feel it is appropriate, so that they feel listened to, and again that's going to encourage them in the future to initiate those conversations and feel comfortable having them. Here are a few final pointers about what we can do to keep our children safe online. As we've spoken about a lot during this presentation, The importance of having regular conversations with our children, talking to your child about their life online, taking the opportunity to tell them what steps they can take to protect themselves, and explain any worries that you might have as a parent or carer about what they're accessing online. And as we spoke about, ensuring that that's sort of a two-way conversation with either your child or children so they feel involved in that. Remind them to report anything worrying, so make sure they know that they can come to you and that you will be available and open to listen to that concern, and most importantly that you want to and you're interested about their life online. Help them to identify trusted adults, so that could be adults within the home, that could be adults they can talk to in wider family and friendship networks, or within school or extracurricular clubs that they're involved in. Let them know that they will not be blamed. I think some children that have found themselves in either difficult or risky situations online can perhaps feel that something they've done or said has got them into that situation and they may be blamed. So it's so important that we reiterate to our children that no matter what the concern is, that they won't be blamed for that. Use the trust and check idea, which Think You Know use, which I've spoken about throughout the presentation. So the trust and check idea is that, you know, if you don't trust something 100%, if something's not sitting quite right with you, that could be about an information source, that could be about an app or a relationship with somebody online. If you have any doubt whatsoever, no matter how small, check that. So, you know, if our children are a bit worried about a relationship they've formed and maybe that person doesn't seem 100% trustworthy, then they need to go to their trusted adults and ask them to help them check that. And it's the same as if, in terms of trust, we wouldn't encourage our children to go up to a complete stranger that they don't know in the street and start a conversation or a relationship with them. And that's because we don't know how safe or trustworthy they are. And it's exactly the same with their life online. If they don't trust it, you know, encourage them to be curious, but curious to check that, but with somebody that can support them to do it. So taking some practical steps at home. So you could create a family agreement and review that regularly. On the next slide, I'm going to show you a really good example of a family agreement. So using those parental controls, making sure you've got internet filters so certain things can't be searched, and that, you know, on YouTube so they can't come across different videos. And that's not just on your iPads or on your laptops, but also on, you know, your game consoles, your Xboxes and your PlayStations. And again, I'll show you a link shortly where you can go to see step-by-step videos of how to put parental controls on individual devices. So direct your child to age-appropriate information. So if your child is wanting to find out something, research something, or perhaps download a new app, you know, you can be there to direct them and sort of signpost them to age-appropriate information that perhaps you've looked at or researched ahead of time. So here is a really good example of a family agreement that is available for you to download. You can get it on our school's website on the e-safety section. And family agreements are a really great thing to put in place to allow all the children to buy into that and feel again involved in those conversations, and that they're not just rules that are sort of put on them, but they have had some say in that, which will help how much they buy into that and sort of stick with it. So you don't necessarily have to use a family agreement about sort of their behaviour online, or, you know, how they'll sort of treat people, which this form sort of suggests, but you can use it for, you know, making agreements about how long each of you will spend on the internet per day. So you're putting sort of boundaries around the amount of time that they're spending on the internet or on certain devices. Some people might want to use it for, you know, agreeing which apps they'll have downloaded on their family devices, and then an agreement that if they wish to add an app, that perhaps that they'll discuss that with the other family members who are part of the agreement to make sure that they all agree that that's sort of a safe and appropriate app to use. So there are lots of different ways that this agreement can be used, and you can tailor that to what sort of you want to you know, agree in your family and what works for you. So as I said, there is available on the school's website. So if you do feel that that's something that, you know, could open up those conversations as well, then certainly take a look at that. So this is another great resource from Think You Know website. So it's Jessie and Friends. It's their online safety education for 4 to 7-year-olds. And I think although a lot of our younger children, our 4, 5, 6-year-olds, may not, you know, have their own devices or be independently using the internet, but it is also about sort of, you know, preventing them from ever becoming, when they're older, in a risky situation. So giving them that information about how to stay safe on the internet from a young age is only going to be, you know, a benefit to them when they're older, when they're managing their life online independently. So go on to Think You Know. There are also other education safety online videos for older children. So I think there's a 7 to 10-year age bracket, and then it does go up to secondary as well, and they really are good videos. So if you do have sort of a younger child, that might be good, something to watch together, and something that you can learn from. And there are several episodes, so there's more than one video per age group. So on this slide you can see some of the offers that Think You Know has for parents. So they have a world of information on their website, videos as well as documents, but really sort of step-by-step guides for sort of lots of different concerns that you may have around internet usage. So as I said, using parental controls, they have some great videos of how to set those up. You know, what is live streaming? More and more children are using that on different apps, so it's understanding that. Online grooming, again, they sort of go into even more detail than we have today. Supporting a child, you know, if your child has ever experienced or been a victim of any online abuse or sexual abuse, then they do have support on there as well. And then again, about those conversations we were talking about having with our children, they have some great conversation starter suggestions on there. So I really do recommend that you go and visit that link at the bottom of this slide, because I've only put sort of a few bits on there, but they have, you know, assemblies for children, they have different videos for parents and for children and for teenagers, so it's certainly worth a look. So the last slide we're going to look at is just a couple of links that you can access if you want further information or help on anything that we've spoken about, especially one of the first slides we looked at, which listed all of the risks or potential risks that your child could face while being online. If there's any on there that you don't think you're familiar with or would like some more information on, you could go to the NSPCC website or the Think You Know website, and they would both have more information on each point on that slide. So the NSPCC website is fantastic for resources for children and activity ideas about teaching them about keeping safe online, but through play and through activity, and also they also have assemblies on there that, you know, especially at the moment when we're remote learning, that you can sort of signpost your child to. Think You Know website really is brilliant. It's where I've taken a lot of the resources that I've shown you today from. So it's definitely worth a look on there. And again, lots of sort of activity ideas, videos for all different age groups. And then lastly, the CEOP link. So CEOP is the agency that we go to when we need to report a potential grooming incident or any form of abuse or bullying online. So the CEOP link is on our school website as well. So you can go on there, and it will take, if you click on the CEOP logo, it will take you straight through to their website. And it's really crucial that our children are also aware of that, and how to report. You know, if it's not to a trusted adult, maybe agencies like the NSPCC and CEOP that they could refer to and sort of make aware that they've got to worry about their life online. So that brings me to the end of the presentation today. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope that you have taken things away today and feel able to sort of have an understanding of your child's life online, and more importantly, that you feel secure in that they are safe. As I said at the beginning, you know, the internet is a great thing, and our children should be able to use the internet, play and explore, and be safe while doing so. And this isn't to scare or to prevent people from wanting to use the internet, but it's just about making us aware that there are risks there, and that we can take steps to make sure that our life online and our children's life online is as safe as possible. Thank you very much. I hope you all take care and stay safe.